Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys the top 5 beginner bosses. Now these 5 bosses that I am going to be showing you guys are mostly my opinion as to what bosses I think you should start off with when you're getting into bossing. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each boss, as well as why I think they are a pretty good boss for players who are just getting into bossing. So basically this video is going to be really helpful for players who are looking for bosses to start off with, or basically just looking how to start off with bossing in general. So anyway guys, I really hope you do enjoy this video, and if you do, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content, and I hope you enjoy. So starting off with our first boss, we have the Barrows Brothers. So this is a unique boss. It's sort of like a minigame where you have to kill 6 different bosses all in one before you can actually loot the chest. So there are quite a few pros and cons to it. So first off, there are low requirements, literally no requirements, although you can complete a few quests to make it a little bit more accessible. Also, if you do complete the hard Mauritania achievements, it will double the amount of runes that you do obtain in your chest. So obviously this will increase the GP per hour. But basically the requirements are pretty low. You should have around 110 combat level if you are trying to do this. You can do it a bit lower, but that is recommended for a pretty efficient time doing this. It is decent GP per hour. The GP per hour has increased a lot recently because of the Amulet of the Forsaken, but that being said, it is also one of the cons because the GP per hour does depend on that unique drop. The Amulet of Forsaken, it is a 1 in 512 drop per loot slot, so you should actually get one of these in about every 100 kills or so. Now this amulet is worth a ton of money. Right now it's listed at about 32 million coins. So it is a really valuable amulet and you can get them pretty often. You should get about one every 4 hours or so if you are killing Barrows pretty efficiently. So that being said, there are pretty low requirements and the GP is pretty decent. Now there's also few mechanics, which does make this a little bit boring. It is more of a beginner boss just because of those low requirements. There aren't really too many mechanics that you will need to deal with or learn from. So on that side of things, that is definitely a con. There's definitely a lot of other bosses that will help you learn how to improve PVM a lot better than Barrows Brothers. But overall, it is a pretty solid boss in terms of GP per hour and stuff like that. So now taking a look at number 4, I put Krill in at this spot. So there are quite a few pros and cons to it. Krill is a God Wars Dungeon 1 boss. I believe it is the best one in God Wars Dungeon 1. So that is why I put it on this. It does have some low requirements. The only real requirement is 70 Constitution to fight the boss. However, you will want some pretty decent stats, probably around level 70s and 80s. The nice thing about this boss is that there are multiple ways of killing it. So there are some low level ways of killing it as well as some high level methods. So as you do level up and progress, you can change methods and become even more efficient at this boss. For example, if you do have curses and overloads, you can use that to maximize the amount of kills per hour you can obtain. But if you are someone just starting off with bossing, then you can go do this boss without using prayer at all. It will actually bypass one of the mechanics that Krill does have. But that being said, there aren't really too many mechanics for Krill. None that you would really try to avoid anyway. One thing about Krill is that it does poison you, so you will need to bring anti-poison. Then there is also that option to use prayer or not. You'd usually only want to use it if you do have curses. But aside from that, the mechanics are pretty basic, which can make it a little bit boring. Even AFK, if you are a pretty high level, you can AFK this boss really well, which can be a pro, but it also does make it pretty boring as well. Overall, this is a pretty solid entry tier boss. Now moving on to number 3, we have Twin Furies, which is a God Wars Dungeon 2 boss. Now this boss is a pretty unique one. You're actually fighting 2 of them at once, and it does have some pretty interesting mechanics, which does make it a really great boss for beginners. So first off, one of the pros, it does only have mid-level requirements. All you need is 80 range to start this boss. However, you will most likely want to use melee. You want to use a halberd type weapon, so like a Noxious Scythe, Dragon Rider Lance works as well. And that's because since there are 2 bosses, you can hit them both at once. So as you can see right here, I'm charging up for my AoE abilities like Hurricane and Quake, and then when I do use them, it does hit both of the bosses, dealing massive damage. So there are a few mechanics that can make this boss kind of fun and challenging. It'll also allow you to learn more about bossing and how to deal with these types of mechanics. So that is why Furies is an excellent boss for beginner players. It does have some really good mechanics for learning. The GP per hour is fairly low, and it does depend on the unique drop being the Crest of Zamorak. Otherwise, you won't really make too much GP per hour. You should expect around 2 to 3 mil per hour on average. If you do get a Crest of Zamorak, it is worth around 12.5 mil. So that is where you would be making most of your money if you do happen to get that drop. Twin Furies is also one of the easier bosses in God Wars Dungeon 2 in my opinion. So that is why it is a pretty solid boss for entry-level players. And overall, it just does teach you a lot of mechanics. And moving on to number 2, we have the Queen Black Dragon. This boss is another pretty good entry boss. It does have some low requirements. There aren't actually any hard stone requirements, although the Song of the Depths quest is basically required. It will reduce the damage greatly, so you'll definitely want that completed before you start this. QBD can be fought with any combat style as well, so that is your preference. As you can see, it does have a few unique mechanics that you will need to deal with. And that does make it sort of fun, although it does make it repetitive at times, which is one of the cons. It is some pretty good consistent GP per hour. The only downside about that is there aren't really any expensive unique drops. You can get the pet, which is a pretty exciting and rare unique drop. But aside from that, there aren't really too many expensive drops that you can obtain. You can get a Draconic Visage, but that's only worth about 1 mil, and that's about its best drop. So that being said, that is sort of the downside about QBD. You don't have that excitement factor of obtaining a super rare drop. However, it does have some really good boss mechanics that you guys can learn. Just dealing with things like the Firewall and also the Tormented Souls, it is some pretty good practice just towards learning how to handle certain boss mechanics. Now moving on to number 1 on this list, I have Vindicta. So Vindicta is also a God Wars Dungeon 2 boss. It is an excellent boss for beginner players. It does have some mid-level requirements, mainly being 80 attack, but you'll also want some pretty good combat stats as well. It is some really good GP per hour, especially if you do get a Crest of Zamorak or a Dragon Rider Lance. The GP per hour does sort of rely on that unique, but there are 2 of them, so that does make it a little bit more often. Now this boss is mainly an excellent boss for beginners because of its excellent mechanics. So basically you will have to deal with a lot of mechanics like the purple fire coming down. You'll need to dodge that, but you'll also need to prayer flick as well. You'll need to use resonance. Also debilitate can be useful as well. So there's many different mechanics that can be useful here, and you will be able to learn them. So basically just a few mechanics that are really good. You can switch to your shield and then you use resonance whenever Vindicta and Gorvek use their range attack. That's always their second attack in that form, and basically that attack does a lot of damage when you resonance it. Instead of taking the damage, you will heal it, so you can practice that ability, get the timing down for that. When fighting this boss, you will also be able to learn when to use certain abilities at certain times. For example, you can use Slaughter whenever Vindicta and Gorvek is about to fly away. That way you'll deal extra damage because that ability does deal extra damage if the target is moving. So there's a lot of really small things that you can learn when fighting Vindicta. That is why it is one of the best bosses to start off with as a beginner. Now it can be done solo, but if you are sort of a lower level player, it can also be done duo or trio, however many amount of players you want, which is pretty nice. So you can go with a friend if you are a lower level player, and they can just show you how to do it. And it's just basically a really great time just to learn the boss mechanics and learn a few tips and tricks with PVM. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys did find this video helpful. If any of you guys have any other bosses that you think would be excellent for beginner players, definitely let me know in the comments down below. because there definitely are a few other really good ones, but these 5 are mainly my favorite for beginner players. Also, if any of you guys want to join my Discord, feel free. You can ask any sort of questions, PVM related or RuneScape related, and we will try and help you guys out. The link to that is in the description down below, so definitely check that out if you are interested. And I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace.